Welcome to Dirt, Sweat, and Gears, your winter wonderland of four-wheeled weirdness. We are back here with one of the weirdest production cars ever made, my 1976 Triumph TR7. Last time, we had quite the adventure getting this car into the garage. Between almost dumping it off of a cliff of rocks to almost running it into a Jeep and using the starter to drive it up into the garage, it actually went a lot better than I thought, but it was an insane idea. I'm just really lucky that it worked out. And now that it's in here, we've done a thorough walk around. I kind of know what I'm up against now. It's not good, but decided to take this project in stages. And the first stage is to get this thing moving and stopping under its own power. I hear stopping is quite important, so I have new rear wheel cylinders right here. I'm going to replace both sides just for extra safety. Only that side is actually blown, but I have a feeling that this one is not far behind. I also have a clutch master, slave, and clutch line. That alone it'll get it in gear and stopping, but I also have a problem with the carburetors. Now, when I brought this car into my existence, I noticed at one point fuel had been gushing out of the carburetors, and that's because they were stuck open. I also have to take care of that. I don't know if I'm gonna do that in this video. It just depends on how much progress we make with the brakes and the clutch. I do know that I don't have the gaskets for it. I just figure I'm gonna pull them off and cross that bridge when I get there. Worst case, I can do some kind of temporary solution with one of those, like, you know, cut your own gasket things, but I'm sure I can find it online somewhere. And that's another reason why I don't think I'm going to get it done in this video. Even if I can find it online, if I buy it right now, I don't think I'm going to get it before I finish this for you. So we're going to focus on the brakes and the clutch for now and see how far we can go. I got the old cylinder out, and here it is next to the new cylinder. And as you can see, they are quite different. This is the hard line that came out of the master cylinder. This connected to a plastic line that ran behind the engine. So I'm pretty sure this is custom. And by the way, it does not fit the master, nor does it fit the slave cylinder. So I think I need to resolve this custom implementation with a custom implementation of my own. First thing is on the list, I have to return that because this is like 85 bucks and this isn't going to do it. I'm going to have to create a soft line with these connections that run from here to here around the engine bay. And I sure hope this isn't a prelude of things to come. See what I did there? So I wanted to get down and take a look at the slave cylinder. Maybe I can put the new one in and, well, I swear I didn't touch it. And, well, there's the problem. I don't have words right now. I got to take this thing out and rethink some life choices. So, I don't need that much negativity in my life right now. Let's focus on something positive just for a minute. Look at how much space there is up here in front of the radiator. That's cool. So when it comes time to do a Miata swap, I can put push fans on the radiator on this side and push inward. And I can also have plenty of space for like an oil cooler and all kinds of cool stuff up here. Not to mention really stupid looking lights that will make this car look cyberpunk AF. So that's some positivity. Now back to this. Oh no. I have an idea. This car has a flex line all the way from the master to the slave cylinder, and it is easily as long as the Triumph needs, if not longer. If this connection fits, which it looks like it doesn't. It looks like it's a little small. If I can make this work, then I'll just get a flex hose from Flying Miata. So the clutch line I ordered was from Treasure Coast Miata. I didn't think of them because I usually go to Treasure Coast for my stock replacement parts, not for custom stuff like the line that I ordered. So that's going to take a few more days of waiting before I can start to put this all together. So I decided to get started on the rear brake cylinders. Over here on the passenger side, this is not the passenger side. Over here on the driver's side, I thought that I could probably replace the cylinder without removing the shoes, but it's not working out all that great for me because, well, I did kind of get it really close to getting in place. There's this wave clamp in the back that keeps falling off, and it's supposed to clip on to the back of the cylinder. I'm trying to reposition everything so that you can see it. I can point it out. So it has to connect to a ring that is at the bottom of this, but as you can see, there is no such ring exposed. Now, where is the old cylinder? So on the new cylinder, I'm looking for, see that little groove there? This wave clamp has to go, it's like a wave clamp, I guess. It has to slip in behind it so that it holds it in place, but I'm having a really hard time getting this thing to push through, and I'm not exactly sure why that is. All right, well, you guys probably know how drum brakes work, but I don't. So I learned something just now. The secret to getting these things off is these little butt heads. So there's this pin that runs through the back of the plate, and then this goes over it. The shoe itself goes over it, something like that. And then you got this spring here, that spring that just fell off, and then this spring here, and then you have to press in the spring, and then you see how this little slot is in here. You gotta press in the spring and turn it so that it fits through the slot and comes out. And of course you got to do the opposite going in. I'm not looking forward to that part of it, but that is going to be a problem for future me. And I'm just going to let that guy deal with it because he's a lot smarter than I am. Ah! Oh, disgusting. This right here is a problem. Just all kinds of crap has been falling out on this thing this entire project. I think this car wants me to take a Sawzall right here. It's giving me the cut line right there. Because this whole thing, there's nothing behind this. There's nothing behind this. It's just a useless collection tub of water and moisture and garbage. So I think eventually I'm just going to cut this sumbitch right out. So after getting all kinds of rust in my hair, I used the vice grip here to get the party started. I kind of kept adjusting it out and in just so that I could get this thing started. I started from the top down because of gravity. Going from bottom up is much harder. So I came straight down from up here, and of course that meant that this part of the ring was covering this hole. So then I had to rotate it ever so gently with the screwdriver and the channel locks, because if you pop this thing out, it'll go flying. So I rotated it ever so slightly, and then once I got it in this position, you can see I still have just a little bit more to do. I have to get the screwdriver under here so that I could kind of get it cinched in underneath the lip there. But This is very, very, very good progress. Finally feel like I am not trapped in a prison of rust and despair. Well, I didn't want to waste any time while I waited for the Miata clutch line, so I decided to do the brakes. And this one, the driver's side, came out just fine. I actually got it back together. It was a struggle, mainly because of the retainer springs and the washers that you have to twist on. I don't know if this is normal, but those retainer springs are very, 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 very stiff. And I got it to work on the driver's side, but over on the passenger side, I had. I'm a very unlucky individual. So over here on the passenger side, you see I have the new cylinder on. I've got the springs on. This side was a nightmare, and I don't know if it's because, I don't know if it's partly because it was soaked in oil or what, but this is just not going back together as easy as the other one. So, you know, I even tried to buy the tool, because you're supposed to be able to use this tool to press in the springs while you, and then the tool is supposed to be able to turn the retainer washer, and it doesn't do that. And these springs, I have to press them in with the might of 1,000 men in order to get enough compression to get the pin through. So, and that's so much force that this can't, there's no way that this can turn the retainer washer. There's just no way. And so what happens is I end up pushing so hard, and then I try to twist it, and then this thing shoots off at the speed of sound, and well, I lost the other retainer. It's gone. I searched for it for probably about an hour and did not find it. So I ordered a complete kit of spring and retainer hardware from the Wedge Shop. Thank you, the Wedge Shop. You're welcome for my money again. Got this in. I had also had some trouble with the brake cylinder itself because the e-brake lever kind of unseated itself while I was trying to get this stupid thing on, and then it fell off of the e-brake lever and also did not line up on the cylinder. So I've just been having a really bad time with these brakes, and I really don't like drum brakes to begin with, and this is really confirming that bias. This is not easy, and I feel like the fact that these are so stiff, something might not be right here. And the only way to make sure of that is to just see what happens when I get this kit in. It may be that everything is just a lot stiffer because it's been corroded, because it's really old, or because it's been replaced with the wrong hardware at some point. I don't know. So I'm going to find out. And until then, we're going to switch back to our clutch line project. We're over here at the Jeep, and we have our clutch hardware. So this is a Miata clutch line with the TR7 slave cylinder. And the holes for the TR7 are the same. They are M12 with a pitch of 1, not 1.5. It's really common for M12s to have a pitch of 1.5, but this one has 1.0. So we have to get this line, which is a 10 millimeter, also a pitch of 1.0, into a 12 millimeter. So I went down to AutoZone. I spent about an hour there trying to figure out if I could make this work. And well, the conclusion I've come up with is I need to get my own short length of hardline with 12 on this side and a 10 on this side, and then flare it myself. So we're going to go get the hardware we need to do that. It's just two 12 millimeters, two 10 millimeters, and two small lengths of hose, or one that I just cut in half. And I have to flare those. I have a flare tool somewhere, but if I can't find it, I am going to have to buy one. Well, as it turns out, The steel line that I had bought from AutoZone is just way too stiff to flare, so that was a waste of money. I ordered a roll of the good stuff from Summit Racing. It's like a copper nickel composite material, something like that. Actually, if you're looking for advice on making hard lines, my advice is don't. Don't look to me for advice. Absolutely do not look to me. This is a cheap and ghetto solution to get something done. Definitely don't use this for brake lines. Clutch line is a lot lower pressure, so there's a lot more room for error, and you're not going to die if your clutch goes out. You might die if your brakes go out. So definitely do not do what I do here. This is a temporary solution so that I can get this moved around in my driveway. If you want to know how to do it right, go look at Superfast Matt's video, and I will link that in the description below so that you can know how to flare your lines correctly. It's actually what I'm going to reference when it comes to making brake lines for this car and for my Maverick and for pretty much every car. So while I wait for the line to come in, I decided to start tackling the carburetors. And as you can see, I've already taken the left one off, and I decided to go with the left one because looking at the airbox, on the left side here, there's a bit of corrosion underneath the mounting bracket. This is where I think the fuel was dumping out from. So as you can see, I've already cleaned this one up because I was kind of like in F around and find out mode. You know, in order to find out, you need to first fuck around. So the float bowl here was just really, it had a lot of sediment, and you can still see some of it there. I'm going to clean it a couple of more times before I put this back together. And there was just in general like a lot of carbon buildup around here, and I'm expecting to see some of a similar situation once I open this up. I'm going to show you this one before I clean it, but let's go over to the parts that I took apart. So here we have the float itself. I had a suspicion that the float had filled with fuel, but that was not the case. Over in this thingy here, it's pretty straightforward, really easy to take apart. This was pretty dirty, so I cleaned it up quite a lot. The spring is just a spring, and there's really nothing to this. There's this guy that comes out from the top, and that's really it. So this is really easy to take apart and put back together. Now I imagine this is the fuel mixture or something like that. You just twist this back and forth a little bit to get a little more, you know, dial the fuel. So let's put this one back together, and then I'll take apart the other side and I'll show you before I clean it up. So now we have the other carburetor apart, and it is pretty much exactly the same as the one I took off and cleaned up already. Inside here, we've got all these lines. It looks like some buildup, carbon buildup, whatever. And it's the exact same story on this side of it. This side is all charred. This side faces the cylinders. This side faces the intake itself, the airbox. So I'm just going to clean this all up and then put it right back together. There's really nothing too crazy about this. It's pretty straightforward. Let's go over to the float bowl, because I did get that open as well. And inside the float bowl, you see it is really, really nasty. There is a whole lot of sediment in there. Just like in the other side, there's a whole lot of sediment. So I got to clean that out. And there's a bit of carbon buildup at the top ring there, going into the carburetor and inside the carb itself. So I'm just going to spray some carb cleaner and a paper towel in there and get as much of it as I can out. And on the fuel side, I'm just going to use a hand transfer pump into a cup and then dump it into my oil storage. So this will be pretty easy to get back together. It's just a little bit of time with the wire wheel and some carb cleaner. So there you have it. I have sort of rebuilt the carburetors. It was really straightforward in this. They were very easy. The only thing I may need to revisit is These O-rings for the float bowls, I reused the gaskets because I didn't have new ones, and I decided, well, what could go wrong? I'm sure it'll be fine. What could go wrong? Well, we'll find out. So if you watched Superfast Matt's video on flaring brake lines, you would know he said specifically not to buy this. And that's for a good reason, because I tried to use it and all it did was ruin the pipe I was trying to flare. I might be able to clean this up. And if it doesn't work, oh well, I've got a whole bunch more pipe. So I'm going to try this again with the actual tool he did recommend. This was bought straight off of his YouTube link. And Matt, if you're watching this, you're welcome. Another thing Matt said that is absolutely true is you will forget to put a nut on one side. So now that that's out of the way, we can make this for real. Well, the good news is I don't have to buy a new vise for another week, because this, I believe, will do the job just fine. So the last thing I need to do is to get couplers to connect that to that line. Now, another reason why I didn't go ahead and invert this or double flare or do anything other than the single basic flare is because I am not yet sure what that coupler is going to need. If it needs to be inverted, then I'll invert it. But until then, I don't know what the deal is, so I'm just going to leave it just like this, and I have plenty of line left if I need to redo it. Moving back to the breakdown project, I did receive the new hardware from the wedge shop. This is the other half of the kit for the driver's side. As you can see, the springs are quite different. These springs are extremely hard to compress. They compress more like valve springs. This is nice and springy. So this was a whole lot easier to install. Let's go take a look at the car. So over here on the passenger side, and I have the new hardware installed. However, I had just a little bit of a concern here. The spring itself seemed a little bit small in comparison to the hole in the brake shoe. So in order to solve that problem, I just used a 1-cent washer. Put that on, no problem at all. So this is ready to go back together. So I went to go bleed the front calipers, and, well, 8mm doesn't fit. 6mm is too small, which leads me to believe this is a 7mm. Who has 7mm wrenches? I don't have 7mm wrenches. I think I know exactly how I'm going to solve this problem. There, problem solved. Well, since bleeding the brakes is kind of annoying me right now, I'm going to move on to do something that annoys me slightly less. And that's back to this clutch line. So as you can see here, I did manage to find couplers, 2 couplers, down at O'Reilly Auto, and they do fit. However, there is just one problem. This is a bubble flare. This is an inverted double flare. So I need to take this bubble flare and make it an inverted flare. Thankfully, that's actually pretty simple with the tools that I bought. Well, that's not so bad. I mean, is it perfect? No. But will it work? Yeah, probably. It's a whole lot less sketchy than the brakes, that's for sure. This is far from ideal, but I think it'll work. Obviously, I am not a huge fan of all of those unions going together like that, but if it works this way, it works this way. And again, I don't plan to have this engine and this whole setup in here for too long. I definitely don't plan to drive any miles on it. And at the end of the day, this is a clutch, and the brakes are way more janky than the clutch right now. I think I should go work on the brakes. Well, with the help of my wife, we got the clutch master cylinder bolted up, and we got the clutch bled. And it feels amazing. It's a little stiff, but it's exactly what I expect out of this little car. The brakes, however, don't inspire a whole hell of a lot of confidence. They go way down, and yeah, it's scary. So that's a problem. So with these brakes, we did bleed the rear brakes, and the fluid is coming out just fine. There's no bubbles or anything, which leads me to believe there are two possibilities. One, the master cylinder may be leaking internally. Second possibility is that the front brakes are hosed. And speaking to the previous owner, he disclosed that, well, let's just say 20-year-old him and 20-year-old me had a lot in common. The brakes on here are not centered up, and they are bolted on terribly. So the brakes that are on here, even though they are 4-piston calipers from a Volvo, they're not safe. And on this hill, I kind of need brakes to leave this garage. So that means this car is going to sit here for a little while longer, because I don't want to leave here without brakes. I need to be confident that when I pull out of this garage, I'm not going to roll down the hill into the street or into the tree or into my house or into my truck or into my other house. The problem is that brakes are what I consider to be expensive. So I can't really afford it yet. So that means this part of the project is, well, it's on hold for now. I'm going to have to figure out something else to do. Well, I mean, there's no shortage of things to do. But I'll just have to do something else that's a little bit cheaper until I get the money to buy some brakes. So the last thing we're going to do in this video, we're going to get some gas in this tank, and we're going to see if this car will start and run without flooding the carburetors, just to see if this work that I did meant anything, or if it's actually going to overflow the float bowls. We'll see. What is that? Oh, I heard something. Come on. Oh. You're getting something. Let's take a look at what's doing over here. It was leaking from this hose, and this hose is connected to this carburetor, which is completely flooded, as you can see. This is very, very similar to what I had experienced before. So I'm not exactly sure what to do here. The left carb is not flooded, the right one is. Can I adjust any of this? Like, I honestly don't know what to do here. So I'm gonna let this kind of chill out for a little bit before I do anything more to it, because that's bad. Having gas pour out like that is not a good thing, and I'm just gonna keep that underneath the car. So I need to figure this out before I try to start this, but now I know that whatever I did was not successful. We're going to go ahead and call that a video. We took on 3 major projects here. One of them was a disaster. The other was a success, and another one was somewhere in between. This clutch feels so good. That was a success. It feels great. It was, all of the parts worked well together. I got all the leaks out of the system, and it bled, and it feels awesome. The brakes, what I did was a success, but that wasn't the complete project, it turned out. And that's where I've got to spend some money to do the front brakes, to do the master cylinder, the proportioning valve, and all of that stuff. It's going to require a little bit of work, but a lot of money. And the total failure was these carburetors. It's kind of doing exactly the same thing it did before, flooding, dumping fuel all over the place, and it's just not a good time. I don't know what to do about that. I've got to do some research and come back to that later. Unfortunately, that means this car is not moving out of this garage probably anytime soon. Thank you all for watching. If you like what you see, like, share, subscribe, comment. And if you don't like what you see, I want to hear about it anyway because I want to get rid of this engine. So let me know what you think I should do with this car that doesn't involve restoring it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.